name is Gregory Scott. Thank you for joining me today. I want to make a quick video about the different planets in astrology. So these are really important when I look at your natal birth chart, because each one of these planets is going to have an influence on you, who you are as a person, and what your experience is going to be like. So there are two luminaries. You've got the sun and the moon, and then you've got 8 planets. And there's a really great way to remember these. It's a little kind of acronym, I think it's called, and it's my very easy method just speeds up naming planets. In case you want to remember that, I'm going to repeat it. It's my very easy method just speeds up naming planets. I learned that in a science lesson a couple of years ago. Oh, there's the dog. And this is a great kind of little saying, because the different words represent the planets. So the first one is Mercury, then it's Venus, then it's Earth, which we don't really take notice of in astrology. Then it's Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. And the other great thing about this is not only does it help you to remember the different planets, but it also puts them in order of proximity to the Sun. So Mercury is nearest the Sun and Pluto is the furthest away from the Sun. And the great thing about that is the nearer a planet is to the Sun, the quicker it moves through the chart. So you know that Mercury is going to be one of the quick planets that you need to take notice of, and Pluto moves very, very slowly, and it's not going to make such a big appearance, and it's not going to be so changeable. Okay, so what do these different planets and luminaries mean? Right, so first of all, the Sun represents warmth, it represents energy, it represents the ego, and it represents what you're striving towards. Okay, so if you're reading a newspaper and you look at your sun sign horoscope, the sun sign is going to be what that's written about, your sun sign, and that's what most people are familiar with. Okay, so the sun sign is really what you're going after, what you're interested in, and it also represents the ego on this 3D physical plane. So that's a very important kind of factor. It's what drives you, it's what motivates you, and what makes you really who you are and what you're trying to be. The next sign is the moon, and the moon is very much about what you're sensitive to. It represents the soul, and often if you compare this astrology with the tarot, the moon is represented by the second card of the major arcana, which is the high priestess. So this is intuition, it's the feminine, it's the kind of psychic abilities, and it's that kind of receptive energy of really taking on board different types of influences. So it's very sensitive. Okay. Interestingly enough as well, if you look at the different languages that different cultures have, so for instance German and French, in German it's die Sonne and der Mond. So in German the sun is female and the moon is masculine. However, if you look at French, it's la lune and le soleil. So they do the sun as masculine and the moon as feminine. So it just kind of indicates that different cultures and different traditions have different ways of looking at these luminaries. So really bear that in mind when you're reading a chart, because not everyone's going to agree with the fact that the sun is masculine and the moon is feminine. You can see that by the way the different languages kind of gender these bodies. Okay, so the next thing we've got is Mercury, and Mercury represents it represents communication. In mythology, Mercury was the messenger of the gods. So this is information. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo, which are signs which are about communication and about sharing ideas and thoughts and sorting the good from the bad. So Mercury is all about talking, it's about broadcasting, it's about bringing your ideas out into the world and really engaging on an intellectual level. The next planet is Venus, and Venus is the goddess of love and the planet of love. And Venus is wonderful because it represents the different types of love. You know, I think it was Aristotle who separated the different types of love, but Venus represents romance, passionate love, intimate relationships, and all of those wonderful, you know, beautiful feelings of romance and real connection with another person. It was Aphrodite in Greek mythology and Venus in Roman, so she is the goddess of love. Okay, so that's important because wherever Venus shows up in a chart is what you love. What is it that you love? And it's so important because the universe, you know, what makes up this universe is love. So I always look at where Venus is very strongly. It's important. The next planet is Mars, and Mars is the archetypal male energy. It's what do I want? What is it that I desire? How can I apply myself to get what I want? You know, it's the warrior god. It's very masculine. It rules Aries, and it's typically associated with men and kind of galvanizing your forces to achieve what it is you want. Then we move on to Jupiter, and this is a great planet. I always look at Jupiter when I look at transits, because Jupiter is known as the lucky planet, the planet of good fortune, and it's the biggest planet in the solar system. So wherever Jupiter goes, it makes things bigger and it makes them grow. And 99% of the time Jupiter is really, really positive. So for instance, if it's not positive, for instance, if Jupiter is in the sign of, or in the sector of, I don't know, let's say a lack of focus, then the lack of focus gets bigger. But if it's in finances or romance or family or work or anything like that, then it improves those and it makes them bigger and it makes them better. The opposite of that is Saturn, and Saturn is often known as the dark sun, and Saturn puts in limitation and structure and foundations. It rules Capricorn. You know, it's very serious, very ambitious, very driven, and this is right and this is wrong, and it's very like, you know, it puts the brakes on, it makes everything harder. And Saturn is really repressive, oppressive. It's dark, it's cold, it's heavy, and it comes in and just really makes things more difficult. I did a video on Saturn return recently, and this is when Saturn, if it's in your birth chart there, this is when it goes around and hits where it was in your birth chart. So that's really important. Have a look at that video. It's Saturn returns. Uranus is a kind of rebellious force, and Uranus rules miracles and the unexpected and the things you never saw coming. It rules electricity, it rules, it represents rebellion and not being conventional and doing things your way and really just thinking outside of the box. That's Uranus. Neptune is a great planet, and a lot of astrologers don't really take a lot of notice of this planet, but Neptune represents the dream. It represents the kind of unseen world and access to the kind of fantastical, the unmanifested side of things. It rules Pisces, which is a very spiritual kind of sign of the zodiac anyway, and it's very much about getting in touch with that mysterious, fantasy, magical kind of side of life. For instance, in my chart, I've got the Sun square to Neptune, and what that means, that central to my personality, what drives me, is an access to that fantasy realm, you know, the unseen forces of life. So that's a really important thing for me. And I think this is important, you know, because it also represents what's the dream. If I look at where someone's Neptune is, it's what are they striving towards? What does their imagination say they could be? Where does it lead them to? And then finally we've got Pluto, and Pluto in mythology is Hades. It's the underworld. It's, you know, the difficult kind of life and death themes. It's transformation, it's rebirth, and whenever this comes up in a chart, you can see the dog there. Whenever this comes up in a chart, it's very much about you know, the heavy themes. If you compare this with the tarot, it really has to do with cards like the Hanged Man, Death, the Tower. It's taking away existing structures and replacing them with new. So this isn't always easy, but it's a big, heavy kind of influence, big, heavy theme. So those are the planets. That's really easy, and I look at how those interact with each other. I look at how they're placed in your chart, and that really tells me, along with some other things, what kind of experience you're going to have. It's a wonderful thing, and you know, they can trine each other, they can square each other, they interact with each other differently, they have different relationships. If you'd like any more information about that, have a look at my website. I go into a bit more detail on astrology in general. But also, if you'd like a personal reading with me, you can visit my website. It's gregoryscott.com. Click on the astrology tab or the reading tab for more information there. You can send me an email. The address is readings@gregoryscott.co.uk, and I'm also on Facebook, facebook.com/Gregory Scott 444. Please remember to subscribe to my channel and to share these videos. It helps them to be found. And I hope you found this useful, and have a wonderful day.